Now, going to the issue of the test. Now, since you're a public school, you do have to administer certain tests, or what is the policy around public schooling and these high stake tests?
Yeah, we have to administer the test, yes. But what a message I want to send to parents is they don't have to take the test. Parents have a right to opt out of the test. They have a right to refuse the test if they feel the tests aren't measuring the holistic intelligence of their children, or if they feel they want something different, like a portfolio assessment or something of that nature. So we, as educators, we have to administer the test, but parents have a right to refuse the test.
Now, do you tell the parents of your kids at CASA that same thing?
Yeah, we tell them what their rights are, and what I try to do is I try to open up a bigger conversation about education and teaching and learning in general, just so we can begin to rethink and reimagine and hopefully restructure what education looks like in our communities. In other communities, they have open space education, they have Montessori education, they learn through exploration, they learn through creativity. It's very collaborative, it's very different. And in other schools, private schools, progressive public schools, there's no high stakes standardized testing the way it's done in public schools. But for us, because of the testing, now that impacts our curriculum, that impacts how we teach, and we're only focused on mostly, reading, writing, and math from grades 3 all the way through grade 8. And not saying those things aren't important, but we need the other side of it as well, because the kids who graduate from those schools, they go on to be CEOs and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and those people like that, while we go on to hopefully work for them, or struggle to get a city job, where in the next 20, 30 years there might be robots or computers doing some of those jobs that we've had in the past. So we need to think innovatively and creatively about what our schools could be for our kids, and align it to human potential and authentic and innate human
You
curiosity.
are giving your parents their rights. You're letting them know what their rights are. And I would imagine that doesn't happen very often in these settings. So I think that that's important, because if you're not informed, then you're not empowered. And that's one of the biggest issues, I think, in our community when it comes to education is that none of us are empowered, or we don't feel empowered. So our kids are not empowered. The parents don't feel empowered. And that's just a recipe for, a difficult
Yeah, I
time.
want to jump on that point you just made regarding parents not feeling empowered and not knowing their rights. I mean, all we got to do is look at the black experience in America. I mean, from slavery to Jim Crow to redlining to crack cocaine to police brutality and now to high stakes testing. I mean, we constantly have the government and others doing things to us as opposed to with us. And many of those things have been oppressive and destructive to our communities, mass incarceration being another one. So we're overwhelmed, and in many ways we're downtrodden. I mean, we're working multiple jobs, we have multiple kids, we're not as strong in our community in terms of our relationships with each other. So we're vulnerable right now, and if we don't come together and figure out how to strengthen ourselves through information and through empowerment through information, and letting parents know their rights, and having these conversations, then we'll continue to be vulnerable, and we'll continue to have, as Ta-Nehisi Coates mentions, the boot on our neck. Only through empowering each other and ourselves are we going to overcome these centuries of oppression that have been taking place in America.
You're right. Now, I think that kind of touching on that point, I remember, I don't know, a couple years ago, maybe a year, I remember reading about, I think it was in Seattle or somewhere on the West Coast, where a group of parents got together and refused to take the test as a collective.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't parents in our community. And so I think that news like that is also important to share with parents, because if they don't feel empowered alone, then they should definitely feel empowered by a group of people. Do you try to convey that message at all in your work?
Yeah. So New York is almost the epicenter of the opt-out movement. Last year in 2014, there were 80,000 parents statewide that opted out of the exam. This year, there were 220,000
Wow.
opt-outs of the state exam. So it's been growing exponentially. But as you mentioned, it's not happening as much in our communities. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this interview. That's one of the reasons why I'm speaking to as many parents as possible, speaking at community meetings, just engaging parents around this conversation. But let me just be clear, it's not just about the opt-out, it's about the what's next. We're opting out as a form of civil disobedience, resisting something that's not healthy or helpful to our students long term, but we want to opt into and have a conversation around a better education system for our children. And what does that look like, right? How do we support families from the prenatal stage all the way through high school into college? How do we better use our resources and better allocate our resources so parents have nursery schools in their communities with qualified professionals that will lead them into kindergarten, pre-K, and into elementary school so they can have more success. So we're having the wrong conversations. As a country, we're investing billions in standardized testing. We've been doing it for 15 years, and the achievement gap has grown. It hasn't closed. It's grown. So we're spending billions on something that isn't working. We need to rethink what we do in our communities.